Alright, there's so much to talk about with regards to the highway route movement's position. I'll just try to touch on just a very few of our points why we are opposing this segment of the highway. So, first of all, our agenda will just give an overview of the highway proposed by NIDCO and the government, and the concerns which we raise with respect to the DB to Mondesi segment of the highway. This is just an overview of my presentation. Now this here is an image I got from a NIDCO map, basically highlighting in green the highway, or highways I should say, being built to Point Fortin. As you can see to the north, there is this segment from Dumfries, which is just outside of San Fernando, going to St. Mary's Junction. They're going to use the existing roads and make it into a 4-lane highway, with future intentions to make it into a 6-lane highway. From that point at St. Mary's Junction to Mondesi, going to Point Fortin at Dunlop Roundabout, that's new roads that they're going to create, and that's going to be a 6-lane highway. 3 going up, 3 going down. Now you can see the second highway, which starts at Golconda. That's where the current highway ends, the Solomon Hochai highway ends. It goes to DB, and from DB it goes through Pinal, San Francisco, Siparia, Faizabad, and then to Mondesi. Right? So that's the overall picture of the highway that's being proposed by the government. First of all, let me make this categorically clear. This segment that I highlighted in blue, from Dumfries to Point Fortin, which essentially should define the San Fernando to Point Fortin highway, the highway route movement is in no way opposed to this highway. We are fully in support of this highway, and we would like to urge the government to at least begin construction on this part of the highway. As far as I know, probably a clarification, other than in Barrett Street, no work has really started on the part highlighted in blue. For whatever reason, there is some necessity to rush to do work and the other segments which I will highlight. So far, the portion in red is the only segment that has been started. That's from Golconda to DB. From my layman's estimation, it's probably about 50% complete. A lot of work still has to be completed in that segment. We are also in support of the Golconda to DB segment as well. Right? The segment which we are opposed to is the segment highlighted in red. That's spanning from DB to Mondesi. Initially, it was put out in public that we were against the highway going to Point Fortin. In reality, that is not true. Right? We are essentially against the DB to Mondesi segment. Then the argument was put forward by the government that this segment here was a necessity to connect the towns of Pinal, San Francisco, Faizabad, and all these communities to the proposed highway. And I will probably delve into that later on. Let me just go through the presentation. Our proposal is just to use the dotted segment there to connect from DB to the San Fernando to Point Fortin highway. And I'll go into that, how everything would fit into place a little later on. The first reason why we are against this highway, and our main reason, is we believe there will be permanent flooding in the DB to Mondesi area. As you know, as you can see in this map, the image isn't that clear, but the image essentially shows the area in brown are the highlands, and the green essentially the low-lying areas. As you can see, the green area at the bottom over there essentially defines the Urupuch Lagoon. The Urupuch Lagoon is also called the Urupuch Basin, for the obvious reason it's basin shaped in some parts, and the majority of parts it's below sea level. So you would find water retaining in large segments, more so closer to the west in the Urupuch Basin. Now just remember this image as we go on. Here is a map, I believe, from the ODPM, which essentially highlights the flooding susceptibility. And you would see that the Pinal DB, well, along the route where the highway is intended to pass, is categorized into two categories, and highly and very highly susceptible to flooding. Everyone knows in these areas, Pina to Divi, once rainfall, you will get flooding. It's not a question of whether it will be flooding or not. You will get flooding in parts of these areas. Now, remember the previous map I showed the highlands inland. Now, when water naturally falls, you have the water flowing from the highlands inland, like areas of Barport, Princestown, Upper Rochard Road, Clark Road and stuff. Water flowing from the highland region, even on parts of San Fernando, towards the low-lying regions, into the Urupuch Lagoon. Now you have rivers taking a substantial portion of that water out to the Urupuch Lagoon and into the Gulf of Paria to the west. However, one of the major contributing factors for flooding in the area is surface water, and to an extent as well subsurface water, not finding its way out seamlessly to the Urupuch Lagoon, where it will go out into the Gulf of Paria. This here just shows the David Monday estimation where it's going to fall, and essentially the David Monday segment is an embankment over 6 to 9 feet high, in some cases even higher, above natural land surface, right? And we believe it's going to create an embankment and inhibit the free flow of water, more so surface water, and to an extent subsurface water flowing out into the Urupuch Lagoon. These are images of this year of flooding in the area. Let's give you an example how high the water floods. Another example this year again. This here again, this is in Pinal as well. As you can see, surface water again and drains and stuff not having the capacity to handle the water flow to reach into the rivers and stuff. Now, so as I said, we believe there will be massive flooding on the eastern side of the highway, the proposed highway. If the government intends to put culverts and stuff, that still will not be sufficient, because currently as is you have massive flooding, and to just put in a couple culverts, probably 6 to 12 culverts, will not be sufficient, as it would still prevent the free flow of surface water going out into the Urupuch Lagoon. Now the Urupuch Lagoon is sustained by water, surface water flowing into the Urupuch Lagoon, right? If you have the water now being restricted, the Urupuch Lagoon, the soil will become dry, and basically the whole physical characteristic of the Urupuch Lagoon will change, and the lagoon may cease to exist in the near future if this were to happen. Now, since 2007, our local, we call him the local hydrologist, Mr. Duki, has been talking about the flooding when he found out about the proposed highway in David Monday segment. And he has drawn maps showing the water flow in these areas, and he has written numerous letters to various state agencies about the result of flooding in these areas. Now, when the EIA was being done, the Environmental Management Authority told the government that they had to do an impact assessment of the drainage and the flooding impacts, which would result by the construction of the Gateway to Mondays segment of the highway. Also, the Meteorological Service expressed serious concerns about flooding, landslips, landslide in that particular segment as well, which we are referring to. The WASA, the Water Resource Agency from WASA, also expressed concerns about the negative impacts of flooding and the impacts on the wetlands in that segment. As well as the Drainage Division from the Ministry of Works also expressed similar concerns about flooding in these areas. So our concerns were not only solely the highway route movement and Mr. Duki and stuff. Other state agencies raised these concerns prior to this highway being, while they were proposing to build this highway. Now, all of these concerns were essentially not taken into account, and they went ahead and they pushed for this highway. So, without doing a hydrological study, certificate of environmental clearance was given to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. right? Our second point is that you'll be destroying prime agricultural land. This is one of the farmers who will be affected, Mr. I forgot his name now. But anyhow, he lives in DB Trace. He has 6 acres of land. He's a subsistence farmer, commercial farmer as well. And he lives in this area. He has 6 acres of land. Now, when this highway passes through his property, he'll be losing all of his land. He'll be losing his home. And he also has a rental business as well. Now, who is going to give him back that 6 acres of land for him to continue his farming? Will they properly compensate him? Now, this guy has 6 acres of land, planting almost every type of vegetable there is in the market. And there are many other farmers like him, small backyard gardeners as well, who will lose lands as a result of the passage of this highway. Now, let me just explain to you why the Penal-Debe area is populated the way that it is. Now, the main years ago when indentureship ended, a lot of people settled in these areas, more so along the Godino River. This map isn't that clear, this diagram. But you can see the Godino River, I believe it's the one in the middle. So what happened is that a lot of East Indian laborers, indentured laborers, after indentureship, they settled in these areas because of the fertile soil in the Urupush Lagoon, and more so in the vicinity of the Godino River. So you found a lot of housing development started to take place in these areas, and up to a couple of years ago, these areas were on the EIA. One of the documents stated that 60 to 80% of the population in these areas, in Debe area, relied on agriculture. I don't know if that percentage has changed over time. Now, bear in mind, this here outlines the Urupush Lagoon, this diagram here. The Debe, Penal-Debe area, the Urupush Lagoon, was also known as the food basket of the southwestern peninsula. Right? The soil in this area has a geosoil fertility that extends down to 15 feet. This could also sustain agriculture for well over 1,500 years. Now, I live in this area, and I can tell you firsthand that when you plant in these areas, you don't need fertilizers. You don't need, in fact, you don't need anything. All you have to do is clear the land and plant, and the soil can sustain the agriculture in these lands. So these are very fertile soil, the soil in this area. Here's another piece of land along the route. Our third point is that it'll be destroying empowered communities. According to the AIA, when they initially did this, they estimated 150 homes from their study, 150 homes would have been destroyed. Today, that number has gone well above 350 homes, bear in mind homes. That's well over 1,200 persons. So bear that in mind. So when ministers go in public and say 200 persons or 10 people would be affected, they are truly lying about what they are saying. So bear in mind, over 350 homes. Now we've gone to NIDCO asking for a list of all the affected residents and persons who will be affected. We've never got that listing. But as time goes by and weeks go by and days goes by, people who are living along the route are being issued land acquisition notices. So every day this number just keeps increasing over and over and over. Maybe because of the poor planning of this project. These communities are well-established communities. They don't depend on handouts from the government. These people are very, they have businesses, they have their own backyard gardens, they all have sustainable jobs, and they are crime-free area, peaceful, quiet areas. Unlike what most people are putting out in public as though these areas are so heinous that they have to build a highway to make these areas into, I don't know what. I really don't know what they want to pass a highway through these areas for. Where in Trinidad could you go and leave your doors open anymore? Where could you go and do that? When last have you ever heard of a crime taking place in Penal-Debe, in the Faizabad area and stuff like that? Can anyone tell me that? We have 13 businesses, a lot of large businesses along that route. Some of the biggest contractors in Trinidad are situated in that segment, and I'll go into that in a little bit later. Besides the 350 plus homes, you have things like orphanage, an orphanage, a $7 million orphanage which was recently opened. Ironically, you have a temple, a mosque, and a church will be destroyed as well for the passage of this highway. These are just some of the homes intended for destruction. Some of the businesses which will be destroyed. You have Epi Pipeline Construction Company. That company is one of the biggest pipeline construction company in the Western Hemisphere and probably in the world. Right? They were responsible for the NGC Cross Island Pipeline project. The owner of this business said he specifically built his business in that area for a particular reason. Right? And he said any attempt to move out of that area or to have him relocated would not be feasible for his business. And he said if they have to be relocated, he said it might as well he pack up and go to another country and set up his business all over. So we believe this highway is essentially a make-good project for contractors and friends and family of the government. The entire project is estimated to cost $7.2 billion. That includes compensation, costs, and everything. Our estimate is that this segment alone is going to cost $5 billion, and from independent sources within the construction sector told us well over $7 billion. That little segment, we're talking about the David Mondesi segment. The reason why it's going to cost that much is because they're going to have 9.1 miles of over 8 foot in aggregate, and that's aggregate that they were initially taking from the Northern Range. I don't know if they may revisit that option to take that quantity of aggregate from the Northern Range. For that little segment, you also have 4 interchanges, 4 overpass, and all these other infrastructure. That's why it's going to cost that much. When the government approached the IADB for funding for this project, the IADB told them that the David Mondesi segment was totally unnecessary. What they told them was that they needed to fix the existing roads in the David Mondesi area to facilitate people seamlessly going into the highway. Bear that in mind. They never sought funding from any external agency. They took all the funding from central government. One of the main reasons may be that they don't want the accountability and transparency associated with acquiring loans from agency, a third-party agency. There is also links with the former Minister of Works who rushed and got this contractor, did all the negotiation in a record of 1 week, OAS, who he had previous interactions with when he was in FIFA. There was also links to the Gopal, as I saw in a newspaper article, the Gopal's Kamala's good friend, with a $600 million contract for transportation of aggregate. And there are many others. You'll see over the weekend all the other activities, and more will be exposed, trust me, with regards to the questionable practices and the purpose of this highway, the Epi Mondesi segment that is. Our proposal would save over $3 billion estimated, which could be used to build a hospital in Point Fortin, which the Point Fortin people need. They can extend this highway from Point Fortin and go down to Ikakas and stuff. Alright, I'll be quick. Right? You'll involve no relocation, no compensation is used, right? And absolutely no flooding because you'll use an existing highland. Right? In March 16, I just want to touch on this because this is what all these things came up recently. In March 16 of this year, after numerous attempts to meet the Prime Minister, we eventually got a meeting with her, the one and only meeting we ever had with the Prime Minister, where she said she would halt all works pending a technical review of our concerns. On a month thereafter, when we had our first meeting, Mr. Warner essentially tried to bamboozle us by telling us, here's what, we're going to form a committee and you all will have 2 representatives and we will have 5. And at the end of the review, we will take a decision, the committee will take a decision on if we should go forward on this or not. Now you tell me, logic would tell you that was an attempt to fool us, right? So that resulted in a walkout. We didn't agree to that. Then, a couple days after, 1 month after the Prime Minister gave a promise, she entered into the debate on Mondays segment and broke a promise. All right? And to date, no real technical report was ever done addressing our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.